They say one man's trash is another man's treasure. My guest today is Michael Waas, Global Vice President Brand Partnerships of recycling company TerraCycle. TerraCycle is a social enterprise on a mission to eliminate the idea of waste. Welcome. My first question to you, Michael. TerraCycle recycles difficult waste. So, how difficult is it for medical waste and plastic waste generated as a result of this pandemic to be recycled?
Sachi, thank you for having me. And it's an excellent question. And if it's okay, I'll answer it in two parts. The first is relating to medical waste, which is typically highly regulated for very important safety and health reasons. Typically, medical waste is required to be carefully handled and sent for incineration to prevent the spread of infection. And that is more important than ever during the COVID-19 crisis. The plastic waste created during the crisis, though, is an entirely separate matter. And I think it's important to remember that throughout the pandemic, we are all continuing to generate significant amounts of waste, and in many cases, actually more waste. You'll see companies like Starbucks preventing people from using reusable mugs for very important health-related reasons, but that then forces the use of more single-use and disposable products. And so we're seeing a rise in the use of disposable products and a rise in waste. So it becomes even more important for people to find outlets to hold that waste where they can and to recycle it as soon as possible.
Are there any measures that you are taking to collect this kind of waste that's going to be generated? So the non-medical waste that you were just talking about the Starbucks and other companies as such who will be looking at health and safety right now in a different light and would be creating a lot of waste. So what are the kind of measures that you as a company are looking at to collect and recycle this waste?
TerraCycle has hundreds of thousands of collection centers all over the world, and many of those are closed because they are public locations and so are under restrictions during the pandemic. But we do have programs that are available to consumers where they can access a shipping label or a recycling box that allows them to recycle the waste they have. And so we encourage anyone who has waste and isn't able to send it in for recycling or use local recycling services to hold that waste, not to throw it away, and to recycle it once they're able to as the pandemic restrictions ease.
For an enterprise to come to you and have this recycled, could you tell me a little bit more about this process?
Sure. So we are working with companies to launch new recycling programs on an ongoing basis. We've launched 5 just in the last week. And so companies looking for a recycling solution for their waste can approach TerraCycle. We will evaluate the best option for them, whether that is for the company to provide a solution for their consumers that is available via TerraCycle's website, or we often offer zero waste boxes that a company can purchase for specific waste streams, whether that's personal protective equipment or something else that is perhaps more needed now than before the pandemic.
And what industries particularly is this waste going to be meaningful for? So recycling is one part, but what are the industries can come and buy this recycled material from you and bring this back into the circular economy?
Yeah, another great question. We work with manufacturers across many industries, and whether that's consumer packaged goods companies like P&G, with whom we've created a supply chain of beach and ocean-bound plastic for use in their hair care and dish care products like Head and Shoulders or herbal essences, to manufacturers of outdoor equipment and hundreds of different playgrounds and furniture and many other products.
How easily accessible or affordable is it for, say, small or medium enterprises to buy this kind of recycled material?
Well, I'll answer that really in 2 ways. One, for the companies who buy the material, and because TerraCycle is primarily working with waste streams that would not typically be recycled, we work hard to create material that can be used, and so develop custom applications to specification based on orders we get from companies. And so we're constantly working to make the process of integrating waste as easy as possible for companies, and to do that at the price competitive price point as well. For companies who are looking to make their products recyclable, we also offer a range of solutions, because the reality is that choosing to make your products recyclable carries with it an investment, and we acknowledge that and provide solutions for companies of any size.
Where do you see the challenges in the pandemic waste? So, of course, it's different for developing countries and different for developed countries for waste management. Where do you see the real challenges in a general sense to ensure that this pandemic waste is reaching the recycling units and is able to be recycled?
Well, Sachi, it's an even greater challenge during the pandemic, but even prior to the pandemic, and in the best instances, often recyclable waste streams struggle to get into the recycled solutions. And so this is an ongoing challenge. And I think the best thing people can do is make sure that they're availing themselves, that they're using whatever resources are available in their community. And that changes dramatically country to country and even community to community. But to know where the waste is going and where the best solution is really important. And that's something everyone can do no matter where they are.
One of the popular questions we get, at least on our surveys, specifically with pandemic waste and plastic usage increasing in the pandemic waste, has been that is there any alternative to plastic, any technology that can replace plastic but is also kinder to the environment?
I think a lot of people are asking this question. I know a lot of our partners are, and it's an important question. We should always be looking for the best option for the environment. But I think plastic is not necessarily the enemy. It is certainly the root of a lot of the waste issue, but really the challenge is disposability, whether it's plastic or any other material. When we're creating things to be used only once and we're creating them to be disposed of, whether it's plastic or any other material, that is the waste crisis. And so we encourage companies to be thinking about not just replacing plastic with another material, because then you're still operating in the take, make, waste, the linear supply chain, but to think about design alternatives. Are there ways to simplify or to design waste out of the equation by, instead of using 3 different kinds of plastic in a product, maybe using just one, because that will improve the recyclability of the product. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to think of not just plastic as the enemy, but disposability as the enemy, and then to reduce material as much as possible.
I read a research study somewhere which said only 10% or less than 10% of all plastic has ever been recycled. Why is that?
It's entirely because of the economics of the recycling market. We are operating in a world where it is cheaper to use virgin plastic than recycled plastic. And so as a result, when companies are looking for material to use, the cheapest option is often to use new virgin material. And so as a result, there is not a really strong business model for recovering and reusing and recycling all of the plastic waste. And so that has been true from the very beginning of the use of plastics, and is even true today, that plastic recovery rates are really not improving as we look at the global production.
Michael, I know that you're not operational in India yet. TerraCycle hasn't made its official launch in India yet. But if there are companies which are medium-sized, large-sized, and create a lot of waste and want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yes. The best thing is for companies to reach out through our website. TerraCycle.com or whatever the local URL is in your region. And you're able to explore what we do and to reach out, and someone from our team will be in touch, whether that's a company looking for a recycled material or to offer recycling for their products.
So it is a possibility for somebody sitting in India looking at recycling seriously to connect with you.
Absolutely.
I think this is my last question is going to be a question that I think the whole world is asking, but I'm going to tweak that a little bit. I'm going to ask you, what is the new normal, but the new normal for the environment as well?
It's interesting looking at the impact of the pandemic on the environment, because there are some very positive environmental impacts from the pandemic, in that many countries and companies are now going to hit carbon reduction goals that they had been working towards for many years, simply because we're not driving as much and making as much and using as much. And so in many ways, nature is rejoicing at the pandemic, because the environmental impact is that we're creating less impact overall. And I think we're going to see a variety of things as the pandemic ends, hopefully sooner rather than later. But one of those things is I think there will be generally a more appreciation for environmental responsibility, as it relates to waste and to health and to natural systems. And I also think that there will be an increase for at least a short period of time in the use of disposable and one-time use products, because of the nature of health concerns and people wanting to ensure that they have, sealed packages and that everything is very hygienic. And so I think it's important, as we navigate through this, to continue to work on reducing our waste impact, just as we've seen a reduction in our carbon footprint and other impacts.
On that note, thank you so much, Michael, for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Saachi.